obviously your best player is here, but maybe not here, and not sure if he wants to. And it was like, and we're trying to, make a playoff push, and it was just there's so many different dynamics, and you could tell we didn't. He was kind of playing like the way we want to play, and kind of not, and just like it was. Everyone was tiptoeing around him and everyone else, and we were really just waiting for the deadline to be done. And then after that, we knew talking to a few of the leaders, once we get that done, then we'll go. Let's go, and we did. And whatever group we had, we didn't care. We just wanted it done.
Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Canes Corner podcast. I am Adam Gold, just another uneventful first day of training camp. Hope all is well in your world, Caniacs. We have a lot to get to. So, without further ado, we are, as always, brought to you by the good people at the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. If it is for the exterior of your home, you can find it at the Aluminum Company of North Carolina on Hamlin Road in Durham. No place like it. Sammy Han and his crew do a great job. You should check them out for all of your exterior home improvement needs. 4 topics tonight. I know I said we were going to do one topic for about 15 or 20 minutes, but we're going to do 4 topics, about the same length of time. We're not going to go very long because some of the topics really will not necessitate a great deal of conversation. One might. So we'll do the first 3, and then we'll get to, I think, the polarizing news of the night. So that's going to be our last item. So I appreciate your time, and let's dig in. You heard there the captain of your Carolina Hurricanes, Jordan Staal, who, quick personal note aside, I remember when he was the co-captain in the last Bill Peters season, when he and Justin Falk were named co-captains. I remember how uncomfortable Jordan Staal was with that. Remember, his brother was the captain. And fans didn't treat Eric very well at the end. And Jordan was wearing an A. And then they did co-captaincy, which was dumb. Well, we all know what happened there. But I'm going to tell you that Jordan Staal has grown into being not only one of the best captains in the National Hockey League, but he has become one of the absolute most solid human beings I've ever been around. And Hurricanes fans should be absolutely thrilled that he wears the C. And if you ever needed any evidence as to why Rod Brindamore trusts Jordan Staal implicitly, all you got to do is just listen to him. He is such a good, smart, reliable person. All right, now, what he said there to me today, as I chatted up the captain on the first day of training camp, was, I'm not saying it was unsolicited because I asked him the question. If you heard the interview, it's only about 6.5 minutes long. Maybe we'll include it in another podcast coming up. We'll certainly use it in pregame intermissions as we start the whole preseason. This is our countdown to puck drop, by the way. Didn't even mention that. A week, not even a week. We're like 4 days away. Monday, we get going in the preseason against Tampa Bay Lightning at Lenovo Center. But I asked him just how strange a year it was last year. And so he went into it. And what he is saying there is something that some of us kind of observed. Some people didn't believe it was happening. But prior to the Four Nations faceoff, Mikko Rantanen was dialed in. He was played well. I talked to Jackson Blake today, and we actually were discussing the fact that I don't know how Blake and Rantanen didn't combine for like 15 points in those 7 or 8 games. They were constantly creating opportunities. Puck just wasn't going in. Blake actually said, I think I was in the midst of a 20-game goal-scoring drought, which I think he was. But once Four Nation was over, Rantanen was a shell of himself, and everybody knew it. If you were watching the games, we all knew it. we're trying to convince ourselves that he wasn't, but he had already made the decision that he wasn't going to be there, and the team knew that he wasn't going to be there, and it was an untenable situation. Everybody made the best of it, and we all saw what happened, but that was Jordan Staal today. And I know there will be people who will take it as a shot at Rantanen. I didn't take it that way. It's possible Rantanen might hear it, and he might take it as a shot. I don't think he should take it that way. To me, human beings play. They're all flesh and blood. They're all people, and it ain't easy. So that was your captain today. Basically, I think just speaking the truth about the situation as we got later in the Mikko Rantanen era, which is sort of like the Mike Piazza era for the Florida Marlins. I think that lasted 7 games before the Marlins, who had just traded for him from the Dodgers, redirected him to the Mets. Fantastic, right? There you go. There's a pull for you. All right, so that's the Jordan Staal portion of this. And by the way, my own impression, he said he's the same. He looked leaner to me than in past years. I mean, he's still like 2 people, but he looked leaner to me. And I think you could see it in his face a little bit. But hey, maybe it's just the opposite of me. All right, moving on. We saw Logan Stankoven at center today. Now, this is not a surprise because when I sat with Rod Brindamore about a month ago, he floated. They didn't float it. He said we'll probably try Logan there as opposed to Seth Jarvis. I thought going, all summer long, if they were going to put one of those 2 guys at center, it would be Jarvis because he definitely doesn't have to worry about Jarvis's offense suffering. Jarvis is going to be the same player. He's already got the defensive part of the game locked down. It makes sense. But I think Rod wants Jarvis and Aho to be a thing with Nick Ehlers, and that was your top line today. So because Carolina's got a glut of forwards, high-end forwards, and I'll put Stankoven in that mix of a high-end forward, somebody's got to play center. He's played center before, so there you go. Logan Stankoven play in the middle between Andrei Svechnikov and Jackson Blake. And look, I don't think the lines are probably going to work out the way everybody thinks they're going to work out or the way even the head coach has them in his mind right now, but they might. But this is the way he's going to start in the preseason, and that's fine. No, we shouldn't read too much into anything. I know Rod said today that who knows how many practices Stankoven will even stay at center. Rod does a very good job of deflecting. My assumption is that Stankoven will play in the middle for the entirety of the preseason, and because it's going to be impossible to make a judgment one way or the other unless it's a disaster, and I don't think it'll be a disaster. And we'll probably start the season with Stankoven there anyway. And again, I keep saying this, I would never rule out Jesperi Kotkaniemi going back there at some point, but right now Kotkaniemi is centering what would be Carolina's 3rd scoring line with Taylor Hall and Eric Robinson. And that line should score, shouldn't it? I mean, that line should score. That line should get matchup advantages and score goals. Staal, Martinook, and Carrier were a thing today, and we already talked about the other line. So that's where it's going to start, with Stankoven in the middle. And I don't think anything is likely to get in the way of that. And we'll circle back to that position. I know you're all interested in item number 4 on our docket. But look, it was just day 1 of training camp. It was on-ice sessions for the veteran group first. Then there was the young group second. There was the fitness testing at the end, the bag skate, if you will. And they were all exhausted. Andrei Svechnikov, by the way, looked great on the ice, off the ice. Gosh, we hope it's going to be a big year for Andrei. So they did all those things. And the only negative was there was only one Slavin on skates today. It was just Josiah, who, by the way, scored a pretty awesome goal. Speaking of awesome goals, Stankoven had the best goal of the day. A backhand, quick release, bar down beauty over, I think it was over Kochetkov, but I'm not 100% sure. To the point where I was standing with Trip Tracy and Luke DeCock, and we all saw it. We were just engaged in discussion, and we all saw it, and we all stopped. We went, "Oh my gosh!" It was that good a goal. It really was phenomenal. But Josiah Slavin was the only Slavin on the ice today. So, and Rod addressed it after. They're not concerned. That's the company line right now. Slavin was at he was at Invisalign. And my guess is that we will not see Slavin in training camp for maybe any of it, to be honest. We might not see Slavin until the Devils on the 9th of October. And I'll raise my hand and say, that's fine. That's fine. We don't need him now. We frankly don't need him against the Devils on the 9th. However long it takes for number 74 to be 100% healthy, that's how long they should take. I don't know what the issue is. I know we all saw the video when he was talking to the NC State football team in the earlier in the summer, and I guess it's people will call it fall. And he was wearing a knee brace, not a wrap, a brace, and we all went, "Oh no." Anyway, we'll keep an eye on that. Hurricanes will train. The young guys will go first tomorrow, then the old guys. And then they'll practice. I think it'll Invisalign the next two. I mean, I got it wrong the other night, yesterday. I think they're Invisalign the next two, and then Lenovo Center on Sunday, and then the game on Monday against the Lightning. And by the way, I would expect we will see one of Carolina's normal lines. 6 to 8 rookies, and then 3 of the 3 PTOs. Kevin LeBanc, Giovanni Smith, and Oliver Shillington, who back in the day I kind of dug in Calgary for a couple of years, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy, so kind of hard to see what his game is. And my guess is that none of these 3 PTOs are going to be around. They're here to play some games. We might probably see Tyson Jost in that game. Tyson Jost practiced with the young guys. Kind of feel bad for Tyson because every time he played for the Hurricanes last year, he was dynamite. All right, let's get to it. So Dave Pagnotta of Fourth Period, who, I mean, they're kind of insiders, gossipy guys. Here's what we're hearing. They cover the league. They do a great job. I am in no way disparaging Dave Pagnotta. Some people will, and I don't know what you're doing, but I think they have very good information. Nobody is right all the time. They have very, very good information. So he put out on Twitter today that the expectation is that the Hurricanes will sign Michael McLeod when he is eligible to be signed. Now, the dates are kind of squirrely. Officially, you can't sign until the 15th, but I think you can enter an agreement on the 1st of October. I'm not sure, but again, that is the expectation as we sit here today. I will explain the situation in a little bit more detail. Obviously, today is September 18th. So we are still 2 weeks away from October 1st and 4 weeks away, really, from October 15th. So there is a lot of time between now and then. And a lot of people are going to get mad. And a lot of people are going to get mad at the people getting mad. And what I hope is that none of you will be mad at each other if you treat each other with respect. My timeline today has been filled with people who are angry, and I respect your right, your position to be angry. This is an ugly, ugly situation, right? But I want the people who are angry at the people being angry to pump the brakes on that kind of attitude. This is a very, very sensitive and complicated issue and a more complicated story. So let me quickly draw the distinction between innocent and not guilty. Those two things aren't necessarily the same thing. And in my opinion, in this case, they are not the same thing. And I'll put it this way. And I'll give you one little, I don't know how much anybody has read about the case of what these 5 players did. And there's more than 5 players involved. I would encourage you to read Katie Strang's piece after the acquittal and read as much about the case and the story and the judge as you can. And there's plenty of stuff out there to read. But to me, this boils down to sometimes behavior isn't necessarily criminal, but it is definitely amoral or immoral. And I think that's where we are here. Now, I also think that we have to put certain things into context, in that the behavior was 7 years ago. We're talking about a lot of young people who make a ton of mistakes. And again, I'm not in any way absolved. I'm just trying to give you some perspective here. And that behavior, which was not deemed criminal, in fact, if you listen to the judge in the case, and I've got a couple of issues with the judge, but I'll bring that up in a second. The judge declared it. This is not a jury. This is a judge. Declared this, and she said it specifically. It is not the Crown. I think she referred to herself as the Crown because that's the way it is in Canada. It is not the Crown's responsibility to judge morality. It is the Crown's job, essentially, to judge the criminality of it. And the nation of Canada, the judge, in her opinion, felt that this was not criminal behavior. And we all know how difficult it is to get sexual assault convictions and all that. I've already talked about that. And that is no matter what country you're in. Because when it comes to sexual assaults, it's even a higher burden of proof, it seems, on not only the prosecution here, but too often the victim becomes the accused. And that is really what happened here based on the way the victim was questioned by defense. Make one comment about the judge, and then I'm going to move off the issue, because there's nothing that you or I are going to do to change the course of events. In my opinion, and I don't know why this would be, because I don't know enough about the judge. In my opinion, the judge did not afford the accuser, EM, anywhere close to the same latitude she afforded the 5 defendants and their attorneys. I thought the questioning of the accuser was unduly harsh. I think that the judge brushing off that the players were getting together to get their story straight, she ignored that, and I'm not sure why she would, because it is clear that they were trying to get their story straight. That doesn't mean, by the way, that they were trying to hide something, although we can make that assumption if you want, right? But I felt like she treated the victim here, and I use air quotes there because I know enough people who have been embedded in this case from the beginning, and not embedded in the case, but following the case closely since the beginning, whose opinion now is that, yeah, these guys deserve to be acquitted. It is so much more complicated than guilty, innocent, or guilty, not guilty. Because again, there's nothing innocent about these 5 players. Nothing. Because they made a decision to do what they did, to behave the way they behaved. One last thing on this, and then we're going to talk about the player in question, because I think that's important to hockey. All these players have been out for basically 2 years. In the case of Carter Hart and Michael McLeod, the 2 highest profile players here, Hart hasn't played at all. McLeod's been playing in the KHL for the last year and a half. Not great, by the way. His numbers at the KHL were not great, but you can understand there's probably a little bit of a distraction, facing trial for this. But given the decision by the court, they will essentially have been away from the NHL for 2 seasons. And again, because it is complicated, and I believe, but we have not dove into the real nitty-gritty of this case at all, because frankly, I'm not qualified to really dig into it like some other people are. And the last thing I want to do is give you misinformation. I'm just telling you that it's very complicated. This is the way they ruled. And now we have a situation where these 5 players are now going to be welcomed back into the NHL. Although I think the NHL is doing so reluctantly, but that's why you have the Players Association. And the Hurricanes, and I've heard depressed asset and things like that. I don't think it has anything to do with that at all. But I think the Hurricanes, who had interest in Carter Hart, who will not come here. I told you this the other day. Carter Hart's going to end up in the Western Conference. But I thought that they would have interest in Michael McLeod. And they obviously do. And it may happen. I guess it's possible that the heat could be turned up to a certain extent where either McLeod or the team or both will back away. I don't anticipate that happening. So let me just give you my impression of Michael McLeod, the player, and then we'll be done with it. And I understand, look, as I said at the beginning, I respect everybody's right to be mad, to be disappointed, to be happy because Michael McLeod is a good player. But I'm not going to criticize anybody for how they feel. And I hope you would do the same for anybody else. Don't be critical of how people feel. If we are still working as Americans here under the Constitution, although there's no, you don't have a right to a second chance in the Constitution. And that's what we're about, right? 2 years away from your job. I get it. You don't have to, people, Joel Quenneville's back in the National Hockey League. That's all I got to say. Joel Quenneville, who allowed the sexual abuse of one of his own players so it wouldn't disturb a Stanley Cup run, is in the NHL. They decided that it was okay. He was away for 4 years. So let me just explain Michael McLeod, the player. If you're hung up on the statistics, he is not going to look like anything other than a third or fourth center. And he might be that, because being away from the NHL for 2 years and that time in the KHL and even his time in the NHL, statistically speaking, he did not profile as anything higher than a 3C. So that's what Carolina might be getting. And you can make the argument, is it worth all of this for somebody who will play in your bottom six? The answer to that is probably no. But I'll tell you the last impression I had of Michael McLeod as a player. And it was in the 22-23 playoffs when Carolina beat the Devils in the second round. I think I talked about this on Monday night. Michael McLeod was New Jersey's best player in that series. And he did not play against Carolina's fourth line. He played an elevated role. He led New Jersey's forwards in ice time. I mean, he's certainly close to it. I think he was over 18 minutes a night during that, I guess it was a 5-game Carolina series win. Now, it wasn't hard to be the Devils' best player because they didn't have very many good players in that series. But McLeod was a handful. He had a goal. He had 3 assists. He had 2 shorthanded goals in the win over their series win over the Rangers. But Michael McLeod is a 6'2", roughly 200-pound, maybe just under, two-way player who can skate and is awesome in the face-off circle, and he's a righty. So I'm not justifying it based on need. I'm not justifying it based on anything, because I'm not justifying what the Hurricanes are going to do if they do it. What I am telling you is that it's very likely going to happen. And I've said this before when it comes to sports. We all have to make a determination. Like the Miami Dolphins are playing tonight. They employed Tyreek Hill. Go check out his background. Every Dolphins fan has to wrestle with Tyreek Hill on their roster, just like Chiefs fans had to wrestle with Tyreek Hill on their roster, just like Texans fans have to wrestle with Joe Mixon, who slugged his girlfriend on video in a Norman, Oklahoma restaurant. Remember, he was with the Bengals first. Look, there are stories like this all over sports, and fans are asked to swallow hard. So this is what fans are asked to do. I will just say about Michael McLeod is I think he's a good player. How good, we don't know. We don't know, and we don't know if it'll be worth it. If you take your money and go elsewhere, I'm not going to complain about it. I'm not going to be mad at you. If you decide that you don't want to support the team at all, you don't want to be a fan, you want to listen to this after every Hurricanes game, hat tip to you. I respect that. Bad behavior doesn't always have to be overlooked. for those of us who are, covering the team, we'll have to deal with the same thing that fans do who decide to stick around. I don't have the choice to not cover them. So my opinion is, if this happens, and I anticipate that it will, Michael McLeod will determine through his behavior, through his actions, how we view Michael McLeod going forward. It's not a great position to put us in either. The behavior in 2018 was reprehensible. 7 years ago, they were what? 19 years old, 20 years old? He's 27 now. How different are you at 27 versus 20? That I understand why that would ring very hollow for a lot of people. And I don't mean it to ring hollow. So, at the risk of repeating myself, complicated, very complicated. It's not as easy as they did this, therefore they should never play again. They did this, therefore my team should not do this. The organization will is taking a calculated risk. The locker room can handle it. The head coach can handle it. The player himself can handle it. We'll see how it plays out. I'm not even going to speculate as to whether or not, the player will be great. Everything is different when reality sets in. It'll change. Everything changes. We'll see what the reaction is from the fans. If, in fact, he is signed and he plays his first game at Lenovo Center, we'll see. There's no doubt there's a lot of risk involved here. We'll see if it pays off. All right. We went longer than 20 minutes, didn't we? I told you we would. Anyway, back to, I think, more fun stuff, although the first part of it wasn't bad. Then we got serious. So we'll do all this again tomorrow. Every night leading up to the first preseason game. A Canes Corner podcast for you. Tomorrow, I'll give you a little bit of a teaser. Apart from any news that breaks, we will be examining the Metropolitan Division to see who will challenge the Hurricanes and Devils for Metropolitan Division supremacy. That's tomorrow. I am Adam Gold. This has been the Canes Corner podcast brought to you by the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. If it is for the exterior of your home, you can find it at the Aluminum Company of North Carolina on Hamlin Road in Durham. No place like it. Sammy Hanna and his crew do a great job. We will leave you with Jordan Staal reading the Riot Act to Miko.
Potentially your best player is here, but maybe not here, and not sure if he wants to. And it was like, and we're trying to, make a playoff push, and it was just there's so many different dynamics, and you could tell we didn't. He was kind of playing like the way we want to play, and kind of not, and just like it was. Everyone was tiptoeing around him and everyone else, and we were really just waiting for the deadline to be done. And then after that, we knew talking to a few of the leaders, once we get that done, then we'll go. Let's go, and we did. And whatever group we had, we didn't care. We just wanted it done.
They just wanted it done. Good night.